today's session, the first session is going to be a new concept called Data to Action Framework, right? This is no magic. This is something you already must be knowing, but we are just trying to get things organized by introducing a concept called Data to Action Framework. So this is what we are going to cover. So I'll be doing a presentation on Data to Action Framework, which might go for like 20, 30 minutes max, right? And then based on this framework, we are going to do some group activity, right? That will take another 20 minutes. And after the group activity, you are supposed to, maybe one person from each group is supposed to quickly present their activity to the entire group of 48 participants, right? And we will discuss like where you can improve and things like that. And then followed by that, I will also demonstrate how to apply this Data to Action Framework on DHIS2, your real instance that I'll be doing. And then followed by that, you have a small activity, which is not graded, but you will have to do it. And then we have Varun prepared to do the second half of the day about the DHIS2 dashboards. And followed by that, there'll be a graded exercise on DHIS2 dashboards. So that's the lineup for today. And let's start with Data to Action Framework. So first of all, the learning objectives of this Data to Action Framework. First one is to understand the rationale of Data to Action Framework and its component, right? We are introducing a new concept called Data to Action Framework, and we are not just doing that, right? We are doing it with a purpose. And what's the rationale of introducing this Data to Action Framework to this DHIS2 Academy? That's the first thing. And then we will also work on how to develop Data to Action Frameworks. That's the second part. And thirdly, we will discuss about how to add Data to Action Frameworks into DHIS2 visualizations. So that's what we are going to do today. Okay. Right. Okay, let's start with something little different. What do you see here? I suppose that the person you are seeing is not, she's not related or known to any of you all, right? I'm sorry if she's related or known to any of you all, but who do you see and what do you see in this picture? What is this picture about?
She's driving, but she's not looking to the right direction.
Oh,
is
great.
He or she?
Right, yeah. So who is driving here? The lady or the? Yeah, she, of course. So
yeah.
Driving, but she's looking behind, right? So do you really think she's or she has kind of stopped the car and just looking back? What do you think?
No, she's driving because in front of her there is another car.
Vehicle? Okay. What if she's stuck in a traffic jam or something?
Maybe she's reversing the car.
Maybe she's reversing. All right, yeah, that's interesting. Sorry?
Or she seemed confident when driving the car.
She's, Oh, all right, okay. Yeah, maybe, yes. That's why she's looking back, okay. What else? What else you can say about this picture? Anything else? Just look at the picture, right? I think there's a lot more you can say about it.
She's posing for a camera.
Oh, right, yes, of course. She may be just posing, right? So there's obviously someone sitting at the rear seat.
And Pramod, I have a question.
Yeah, what is it?
What are you doing in the back seat?
Like your questions,
yeah.
Right? So what is it?
I just want to know what you are doing in the back seat there.
Okay, that's the most important thing. What I was doing. Obviously, I was capturing this photo. What else, right? Yeah. So
there is also somebody who she or he seems to be care because maybe she's carrying somebody. You see on the right side.
All right.
There's somebody who requires some help, or maybe.
Okay, so there's someone seated also on the front seat next to her, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes. Very good. You are noticing so many things. What else? Anything else? And where is this? Yeah, sorry.
Somebody said the speedometer looks 0 and she's not driving.
Sorry. All right. Yeah. So it's very interesting find. You see, that's why I was initially thinking like she's not really driving. So you can see the speedometer. I'm sorry, I'm not following the chat. Priyanka, any comments? Please let me know. Right. Okay. So, I mean, going one step further, where do you think this picture is from? I mean, like, what is the context? What maybe the country or maybe the region where this picture is taken?
Somewhere in
Maybe
a
in some Arab countries
Arab
where
country.
females are not allowed to drive.
That's a bit okay. How did you guess that? Okay, there were two answers, right? In your just one statement, it was about Arab country. So why would you say it's Arab country?
Yeah, because
The dress code.
yeah,
Okay.
the scarf, the what they call, yeah, with their culture, yes,
Okay.
it seems like somewhere in the from the Arab country, yes.
Okay. What else? Anything else supporting it could be Arab country? What about the tree located in front? Did you all notice?
Yeah, the palm tree.
Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now, what I actually wanted to highlight here is now just see like
Someone has commented out here in the chat that she's the first lady who got driving license in Saudi Arabia, question mark.
all right, okay, let's just come back to that a bit later, but like just by looking at this picture, right? So these are the things that you can see now see, like we started off commenting and we can just go on commenting on different directions, right? Because all these are possibilities. Okay, so when you just look at a picture, each one of us have our own way of interpreting it. That all depends on smaller facts, small points that we are seeing in the picture, and we can start commenting on it. But the thing is, like, all of us may be correct, right? That's one possibility. Or else all of us may be wrong, okay? And the other thing, just some of the things we are thinking may be correct and some are absolutely wrong, right? So what actually does that leave, like, where does it lead us? The thing is, like, I mean, we may actually try to comment on things by just looking at something which may not be correct, right? So what we actually want to do is, like, if we are trying to convey a message to someone by showing a photo, it's always good to give some context attached to that picture. Okay. So rather than posting or showing someone a picture, if you can just maybe narrate something about it. Okay, now look here, something like this. Look here, now I'm showing this picture, right? Now, this was in fact, I captured it in this place, right? And I captured it on this particular day, and this particular day was important, right? That's why I captured it. And these are the people that you're seeing it. So if I can at least explain that bit along with my picture, then I'm kind of directing the audience or whoever who's seeing it in the proper direction so that they can get a better idea about what I'm actually trying to highlight, right? So let me just show you in the next slide something interesting that might change the way you looked and interpret this picture. Okay, right. What do you see here now? So of course, now that you will know that this picture, Priyanka, was not actually taken by me, and I'm not related, nothing at all. This is something we have extracted from online Twitter, right? So okay. So what do you see here now? Now there is this lady, right, who has commented, you want a statement, and here is one. Saudi Arabia will never be the same again. The rain begins with a single drop. Women to drive. And of course, you have the heart, right? So all this really matters. So basically now you will get an idea, right? Just, as opposed to just seeing a picture and you trying to interpret it, now you see this description next to the picture and you get the idea. It's just one or two sentences, but now you get the idea. Okay. Now, why this picture becomes important is that this is a picture that was taken on the very first day the female were allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia, right? And in addition, because now this is now what social media does is, in addition to providing this kind of visual and textual information, there is another emotional part also you can convey. You can see that heart mark, and that actually expresses the love, the passion of of this person for actually enjoying this privilege, which was not allowed for them before, right? So that emotional part is also conveyed, attached to the picture when you have this statement. Okay, So you can see how powerful social media is, right? Social media just not post pictures, but they also post descriptions. Along with that, there are emojis, and there are various ways of interacting with whatever content that you have shared. So you can take it to a next level, right? With that, you can, like just rather than trying to highlight something from the photo, you can of course try to convey something more than that. And also, if you can notice, right, you can notice what is this? This actually shows how many people have liked this, right? So if you see that, okay, now the idea that you get is like on this particular day I have captured this photo, there are 6,916 people who have kind of liked this idea, right? So it actually, like rather than somebody presenting something, engagement from the audience, right? So that is another powerful feature of the social media. You get it is not one-way interaction. You get the response, you get actually the emotions of the audience. And if you can focus, what is next to that is the comments, right? And you have actually created a platform by using this in social media where people can really express what they feel about it, right? And they may, they may like it, they may hate it, or they may have some kind of a criticism towards it. And all this is expressed by using social media. Do you get that? So this is one great aspect of social media that we can really expand on. Okay. And why we have highlighted this particular slide in our academy is that this is something which we can actually extract and take to DHIS2.
Amod.
Here, actually, what I'm trying to explain is like these concepts in social media are good concepts that we can actually use in DHIS2, right? So this is what we are trying to do and trying to focus during today's presentation. All right. So now, first of all, what did we have in this particular image that we are kind of lacking in DHIS2? So the thing is, in DHIS2, we have this visualization. So we may have, charts, maps, and tables, and we can even embed them in our dashboard, right? So that is possible. But what are we actually lacking sometimes? What we may be lacking is the idea of giving the context to the persons, right? So for example, now the thing is, sorry, let me just, yeah. So for example, the thing is like we may try to highlight these items in our dashboard that we can jolly well do. But sometimes we may not be really giving them the context. For example, like the users should have an idea, what am I looking at in this particular dashboard widget? And then what am I supposed to do with this information, right? So this thing, we better provide them an idea about what they are looking at and what they are actually supposed to do with what they are, after seeing this thing. Right? Now, if we are not able to do it, it will be just another image, right? Like sometimes, when you are using Facebook, if just a person has, just posted something without much text in it, you may just look at it and you will just scroll down further without really not engaging with that picture too much. But whereas even in Facebook, you post a picture and you add some text to it, explaining when this was taken and why it is important, people may get engaged with that more, right? People will feel like expressing their views in the comments section, right? So that way you can get more engagement if you really explain the context. So we are going to see how we can do that in DHIS2 as well. So what we usually do is, like when we design these maps and charts in our maps application or data visualizer, we just save it, right? When we are saving it, it is asking us for a name and a description. But what we usually do is we are not actually putting anything in the description and we just give it the name and save it. And that is exactly what is appearing in the dashboard. So if we can provide more information about the context in the description, then that will really give the people who are seeing it a better idea and they can really get engaged. Am I making myself, much clear, right? I'm trying to link some good concepts that we are using in social media with DHIS2 and how we can, get better engagement of the content we are trying to publish in dashboards just like how we are getting engagement in social media. Is that clear? Okay. Right. So if that is what we are trying to achieve, then there are a few components that we have to define, right? When we are trying to explain the context. Okay, so what we are trying to do is, when we are trying to explain the context of an analytic output to our audience, what are the things that we should be mentioning? Okay, so there are a few things that we have to mention. The first thing is, what is the data that we are trying to show? That we have to first think, okay, and you have to mention. So for example, usually in dashboards, we are most of the time displaying indicators in our system, right? Because indicators are more objective and it gives a better idea about what actually we are trying to explain, as opposed to a raw data like a data element. So maybe one of first components is, what is the data? So here it's about the indicator that we are trying to show. Then the most important thing, and of course what we are trying to show, like how it is presented. Okay, so here what we try to mean by how it is presented is the visualization part of it. So there are so many methods of visualizations that we have been talking about and trying to highlight over the days. So it could be, I mean, like we may be interested in showing them a table, right? Or else a chart or graph, or maybe a map. So we have to define and decide what would be the ideal visualization for this indicator for our audience. So based on that, we have to decide whether it should be a table or a graph or a map. Okay, so that is about how it is presented. And the third is, how is it important, right? How is it important to the audience? So this you have to carefully plan. Okay, now the thing is, we may just mention, okay, audience, okay, users, this is the indicator that you are seeing, and I'm actually showing this one as a chart. But then the users may be thinking, I mean, you should always assume that you will have a huge range of users who are logging into the system, right? They may be really, high level, really educated people and have a very good background on public health. Like for them, when they see this visualization, they'll be able to get an idea. But you should always try to cater to the audience who do not really have a better idea about what you actually see. So this is where you have to explain in detail the objective. I mean, why you are trying to explain this, right? That is one thing. And the next is, where does the data come from? Because sometimes the audience may not have an idea. Okay, now you are seeing a visualization, but like, what is the source of this data? Like, what is the data set, right, in the system that it is coming from? And what may be, it's also important if you can actually explain to them what would be the numerator and denominator, right? So that they don't have to dig in further in the system, because people are a bit lazy. That's why we have the dashboards. If the people are highly enthusiastic, we may not even need the dashboards. We can just ask the people, okay, this is the program, go and find out, explore and find out. But people are not doing that, right? So because the people are lazy, it is really worthwhile mentioning them the sources of data so that they will get a better idea and they will be able to interpret it. And finally, the other thing is, how do we use this data to inform our program? That is the most important thing, right? This is the point where we are really trying to stress, okay guys, now you have seen this data and you have got an idea of the objective, but what's next? If you can remember on the day one of our discussion, I try to highlight in my demonstration, like it is all about action. It is all about using the data and perform some action, right? So maybe if you are trying to show an indicator with there are legends attached to it, this is what you have seen, and there are some areas which are really performing poor. So please do this. Please take these steps and do these actions so that you can, improve the performance of this district in the next reporting period. So this is this particular component we can highlight under the point number 5. So is that clear? Now, when you are trying to explain this context, you have to put information about all these 5 points into the description part of the visualization that you are trying to show. Okay, So this is the whole concept about interpretation of the data that you are trying to analyze. Okay, are you kind of getting where I am trying to get you at? So to do this, we are using a framework. Now, to achieve this thing, you have so many ways of doing it, right? There is no right or wrong way, but to make things generalized and more structured, we are using a framework, and that framework is called Data to Action Framework. And this particular Data to Action Framework is basically having these 5 steps that I have mentioned here in this slides. Is that clear? So basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to explain the context of what people are actually seeing. So they are just seeing a visualization, and we are trying to explain the context, and explaining that context have 5 steps, and these are these 5 steps, and these 5 steps we are giving a name called Data to Action Framework, right? So I mean, I just tried to put everything in nutshell and explain to you in simple terms what this Data to Action Framework is about. So you just have to do this, and let's see how we can do that in our real life scenario. Let me just disaggregate all these 5 steps in this framework into individual components. Okay, first of all, the point number 1, what is it? What are we trying to show, right? So here an example would be like, okay, now when we are trying to show, we take an example, I mean like a context may be a data element or an indicator that we are trying to show. Okay, that is what we mean by what is the data. An example would be, as you can see here, the BCG coverage, but it could be anything, right? ANC1 coverage, right? Likewise. So the example that I am taking for what data component would be BCG coverage. Okay, I think this is very simple. I will move to the next step. Okay, now we have the what component. Let us put the second component, which is how is it presented. So you have different visualizations that you can, like it could be a map or a chart or a graph or a table, right? That we have to decide first of all, whether it is a map or a chart or a table. Okay, that's the step number 1. And then the next important thing is, what is the granularity of data that we are trying to visualize? So it could be like, I mean, we can just show something at country level, right? So if I try to show something at country level, it will be just, colored in one color. Or else if you can remember when I was doing drilling up and down on when I was explaining the maps application, we could have either opted to, show it at regional level. So this entire will be food region, this will be animal region, likewise. Or else the next step would be like we can visualize them at what? The district level. So this also we have to think about at this step when you are defining what are you going to show for the visualization. I mean, it's not about just thinking whether it's a chart, graph or table, and then you have to think about the organization unit level that you are disaggregating at. So this is the step number 2 that you have to think about when you are doing the visualization. Okay. Let's move to the next step. So we have what and how it is presented. The next is, why is it important? So this is again, this I would say the second most important thing in this entire thing, right? You have to give a better idea about the objective of this visualization. Okay. So here I am mentioning, right, in a text format to the user why we are doing it. So here I am mentioning to measure for the BCG coverage. I'm mentioning to measure the overall performance of delivering the BCG vaccine, right? BCG coverage is also an indicative of access to immunization services. High coverage indicates that health service cover a higher proportion of the population and that there is less resistance to accept vaccinations, right? So if you can give this description about the objective and what it means, then even a person not from this BCG, I mean like the immunization background, will be able to get an idea. This becomes very important when you are doing a desk review, and if you are actually rendering some services to very underprivileged countries where you have a lot of external assessors, external reviewers who come and perform review activities from time to time. Because the thing is, like, sometimes you may not be the person who's available when this review team comes, right? Because like if there is no proper resources, human resources available who can really take through the system by sitting with these external reviewers. If there is no person, still, if you have a better description like this, they'll be able to do the review by their own, right? So that's why it becomes very important to give the objective. The fourth one, of course, will be the data source, right? So here you are mentioning, for example, this data source. So I mean, for the immunization program, you are mentioning the source of data, right? So you are mentioning here, this is coming from immunization program monthly DHIS2 data set, right? So that people don't have to really dig in and find out where this data is coming from. And here you are mentioning, okay, now look here, this is an indicator. So because it is an indicator, there's a numerator, which is the number of BCG doses given, and the denominator would be number of live births, so that they don't have to, go back to the metadata configuration and find this out. So you are making things easy for the users, and when things are very easy for the users, there is a high chance that they may get engaged. Okay, right. And the final component, of course, is about how do we use this data to perform, even to inform our program, right? And here we are talking about the actions. Now, please concentrate what we have highlighted here. Now we are saying, now we are actually defining how are you going to use this data. So here we are mentioning if BCG coverage is purple, which is more than 125%, then you have to do a few things. The first thing is review the numerator, right? Because the thing is, if it is more than 125%, there is then something absolutely wrong. We have to figure that out, right? So the first thing is you have to review the numerator. So are there any entry errors or outliers, right? You have to check. Please, data entry staff, please check this. And you have to review the denominator. Is the target population plausible, right? Is the selected target population correct? I mean, is there very low estimation of the population? Is it what is contributing to this 125% plus data that you are seeing? That is step number one. Right. If the BCG coverage is in green, as you are seeing here, then you are saying, okay, please, well done, just sustain the efforts, right? Don't let it down. Just continue what you have been doing or try to improve further. And then what you have to do if the coverage is in red or orange or yellow, which is less than 90%, then you have to mention what are the things you have to do. Check whether there is underreporting. Check whether the staff have conducted educational awareness programs in the community, right? Or check whether AEFI, which is adverse effects following immunization in the community, is leading to a low coverage. It can happen, right? I mean, you go and vaccinate people, children, and then they, they may develop some reactions, but that is fine, that is accepted. But the thing is, like, if there is reactions developing, you have to do this education to the community, not only to the individual parents, because like when the community is educated, they may not get scared to come to the next door. But otherwise they will think, okay, now look here, somebody vaccinated my kid and then this kid developed so many reactions, kid got really sick. So please, my neighbors, relatives, please don't go and follow get your kids immunized, because then your kids will also encounter all these issues. So that's the idea that goes to the community if you don't do proper education programs in the community, right? And the next thing, you can check the cold chain, check if there have been significant periods of stock out. So likewise, you list out what to do, right? So you don't let your health staff assume. You give the proper instructions. So even when you are not there, the health staff can perform it. Right? So do you get that? So this is something very important that you actually have to do, right? When you are doing this interpretation of data. Right, so now I think, have I made myself clear about the components in this DatatoAction framework and what you have to do when you are writing this interpretation? Is that clear up to this point? Any questions?
Yeah, Dr. Pamod,
Yes.
as you shown in that first slide in social media, that emotional part and comment should enter into this framework, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So Vipal, the thing is now, if you can remember the first day when I did the demonstration, so what you do is now in my next slide, I will show like now this was now up to this point, I have just been explaining how to formulate this framework. Okay. And next slide, I'm actually going to show where you are putting, I mean, like how you are putting this framework into DHIS2. So once you do that, if you can remember on the first day, did you remember like I mentioned, once you have a visualization, people can go on commenting on the dashboard. So that is where, so that's where you can put likes and keep on comments. You can give your own interpretation. And if something is not going right, you can tag users so that they get a message in their interpretation dashboard. When they log into the system in the dashboard, they get a message or even an email notification that somebody has, mentioned me and I have to do something. So this thing is the follow-up for that one. So even that particular commenting part that we saw in social media, we are also trying to integrate that into DHIS2 by using comments for interpretations, which I will show you in a short while. Right, so if there are no questions, let me move to the next slide, which is about how we are going to put this into DHIS2. So it's so simple, you don't have to do much. So basically what you have to do is, you have to, have these headers. So these are these 5 steps: indicators, objectives, data source, right? And then action to follow. And then under each of them, you have this, the text written. And what we do is, when we are saving a favorite item, we put the name, which we always do. And on the description, we are just putting this text, right? So when you do that, it appears very nicely in DHIS2. I mean, under all these dashboard widgets, you'll be able to see when you open the interpretations tab. So what I'm just trying to explain what you have to do. So basically, when you are saving a favorite item, under description, just put them, and then it'll appear nicely when you see it in the dashboard. Right. So then, why do we actually take this approach? The reason is, now the DHIS2, it has data, right? DHIS2 is typically defined as a data repository, but that means it can serve as a data repository, which it is doing really fine. But the thing is, you have a few more steps ahead that you should definitely follow. Now this data, you have to, make it information. So how you do that is by, formulating indicators and trying to maybe, put it in a very structured way. You group them. I mean, you may have so many raw data elements, but then you have few indicators which can give you information. And this information, you actually have to convert to knowledge. How you are doing it is maybe by, having legends and giving them an idea, right? Okay, now these figures, the values you are seeing has some, we are actually trying to convert it, I mean, match it with a benchmark. So for example, now by having legends in different colors, we are actually benchmarking. So you have a value, say 90%, whether it is good or bad, that you are defining by having these benchmarks, right? I mean, these colors. So that with that, we are actually, trying to generate the knowledge. And by having this interpretation, we are trying to convert this into an action, right? So you have this knowledge, and based upon this knowledge, you can convert it to an action, and we instruct users what to do. So the thing is, now we can actually like rationalize. By doing this approach, we are actually rationalizing collection of data. So to mention in other words, like if we are collecting some data which actually we can't put it into action, then we should really ask ourselves this question: why are we even collecting that data, right? I mean, if the data that we are collecting is not contributing to any public health action, why are we collecting? We are just exhausting our data into people at grassroots level, right? Which they can use for, I mean, many other work. So we should not be doing that. We should question ourselves. If we can't actually make any use of some data and convert it to an action, then we should not actually be collecting it, right? So what can we do? We have to follow this approach. And where can we do it? You can do it at any time of the program cycle. I mean, it is not a problem like you may have had just a system without actually having these descriptions and interpretations. That is fine. You can start it now, right? So what you can do is whenever you have a DHIS2 visualization, you can create, if the visualization is not having this description and the interpretation I mentioned in this 5 steps, if it is not there, you try to create this visualization with the description. This description, of course, is what we mean by interpretation. We can remember the interpretation, the word I used on the very first day, it is basically meaning this description with these 5 headings, right? So whenever you have a DHIS2 visualization without interpretation, you try to create it. And every time you try to, you comment in a DHIS2 visualization, ask the owner, like if somebody has, saved a dashboard item without interpretation, please use the data to action. So D2A means data to action framework, and try to do this and create an interpretation so that it will be more useful for the end users. Is that clear? Right, so any questions up to this point? If not, we can quickly move on to a group exercise, group activity actually, because it's already 11:10 here. I think if there are no questions, this is what I want you all to do. Right, so in your group, please select one of the favorite items, right? In the system, you can select whatever, right? It's up to you. But the thing is, first of all, let us know, at least in Slack. So I will try to open up the breakout room so that you can discuss quickly. But please make sure that in the support channel, you let us know what is the favorite item that your group is selecting. It's on first come, first serve basis, because I don't want all of you to select BCG coverage or something like that, because I want, we want to go for a discussion, right? So I can give you maximum 20 minutes, right? So, I mean, not sure. Yeah, you can take a break, but the thing is, we are really running short of time today. So you can take this 20 minutes and even take a break because we need 20 minutes for the discussion, and then maybe in 2 to 3 minutes, each group will have to present. So what you have to do is, like, you discuss in your group, and maybe a 1-slide PowerPoint presentation you can make mentioning the data to action framework, just as how I have mentioned in the slide. I will show you the slide and I will have it projected in a while. So just make a single slide presentation with these 5 points for whatever the favorite item you have selected. And one person from the group is supposed to share your slide and explain these 5 points. And if there are any queries from the remaining members in the entire audience, we will take them up and we will try to finish it off within like 2 to 3 minutes per group, right? Because then we have to show, I will be doing a small demonstration followed by that, and then we have to move on to dashboards.